Welcome back to our walk through 1 Timothy. I don't know about you, but I'm quite glad to be done with chapter 2. As we move on to chapter 3, we now come across a chapter that deals with qualifications for two officers within the church, office bearers, namely overseers and deacons. Overseers normally used interchangeably in Scripture with the word elder to denote the same role, namely the role of governing or leading in a local church. So we're at 1 Timothy 3 verses 1 and 2, looking at this thing of desiring a noble task. So this is what the text says. In verse 1, Paul says, "This saying is trustworthy." Actually, there's some dispute as to whether the trustworthy saying is what follows, which is what we have here, or whether the trustworthy saying is what immediately went before at the end of chapter 2. I think this is correct, so I'm going to leave it here. So here's the saying, which he says is a trustworthy saying. He says, if anyone aspires, the word has the sense of desires, to the office of an overseer, he desires a noble task. So anyone desires the office of an overseer, he desires a noble task. As is often the case, if we just read the text clearly, we can avoid some common pitfalls in interpreting it. I remember technology people telling me that the most common problem they have with people who get stuck with basic stuff is that they don't read the screen. That if you just read your screen, often it'll tell you what the problem is and you can fix it. And we do the same with the biblical text. We often just don't read the text. Notice what he does and doesn't say. He doesn't say that if you desire the office of an overseer, it is a noble desire. So, is it a noble or a good thing to desire the office of an overseer, a church elder? Well, the text doesn't speak to that question, right? It doesn't say it's good or bad to desire to be an elder. It simply doesn't speak to that question at all. What it says is that if you desire to be an overseer, so if you desire that already, if that's the reality, then you are aspiring to a noble task. What's the thing that's noble here? The work of an overseer is a noble task. In Greek, literally, kalu ergu, referring to a good work. So the work that an elder does, or an overseer does, is a noble task. And if we aspire to that role, then we aspire to something that is inherently noble and good. Therefore, says Paul, therefore, because we're aspiring to something that's noble, an overseer must be anepilemtos, above reproach, blameless. Because an overseer aspires to a work that'll give opportunity to influence people, to have an impact on their lives, to do good work, he needs to have the kind of character that makes him eligible for that task. And in this letter, we're going to run into an entire list momentarily, but the umbrella term is this one of being above reproach. And what he's going to do for the rest of the list is he's going to unpack in what spheres of life an overseer needs to be above reproach, namely as husband of one wife, as a father, his conduct and character within the church, his ability to teach, etc. So what follows is a list of specific ways that an overseer ought to be above reproach. So hopefully we're dealing with an easier text today. If someone desires to be an overseer, an elder in a church with governing authority in that community, they desire a good work, a noble work, a role from which they can exert influence for good. But the kind of influence they exert will depend on the kind of character that they have. Therefore, an overseer must be blameless with respect to his character and conduct in the community. So it's not saying that it's good to desire to be an overseer. It probably is good to desire that if our motives are right. but rather he's saying that if we desire that, we desire a role that's really responsible because we have an impact, for better or for worse, on people's eternal destinies. Hope that's helpful. As always, appreciate a thumbs up and a subscription. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.